Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 11th, I want to say, weekly meeting for the working group of the merge request report widgets. Today we have a small agenda, just a one discussion item. I'll move this discussion to an issue just to have an asynchronous discussion with the engineers. But for the people in the call, one of the things I noticed is that the widgets that have already been rewritten, the parts where they have subtext and I think the one that we had was browser performance, where they have that little text with green numbers and all that stuff. The way that the content is being controlled is that the widget, the consuming widget, in this case, the browser performance index.js, who's consuming or using the core component, they're the ones specifying the markup for that. Using their utility classes, which leads to the problem that I think Gina reported, that text wasn't exactly right according to the UX framework. This was more of a topic to bring up because we're very early in the game yet. We only have like 2 widgets rewritten. I think we have a couple more in the pipeline, but I wonder if we should be more strict into how we allow them to add content. I know that we have some system using slots and everything, so for the engineers. But I wonder if we should be much more restrictive in, so right now I see a method that outputs the summary, for example, and then the summary has like a GL text red, and then a GL text gray, and then a GL text green, depending on what's being outputted. But I wonder how deep does the UX framework goes? Is it that there's a title, there's like some things that are written in stone, like the text size and the font and all that. But do we want to allow some freedom to the consuming widgets to play around with it, or do you want them to stick to that styles? And what do you have? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, I guess. I think that in our exploration and based on what's in Figma, everything that we tested and that we built out examples for worked with existing styles. And so my initial reaction would be to leverage that as much as possible. And then if there's for some reason that can't work, then we can go back and adjust and see where we need to have flexibility. But I think I would prefer to start more rigid initially, and that's based on our exploration and having it actually work for all of those.
And one additional point I want to make is if we restrict it from the beginning on, we will have people reaching out to us if they need it. If we make it very open from the beginning on, then people will just implement it and we will not hear about it. And then we have chaos again. So I rather want to be restrictive and then have them reach out to us. We can see if we want to add it to the core component or if we do want to do something different. But the more we know about it, the easier it's going to be.
I think this case was a little, I can't think of words right now, but unique because this was one of the first merger request widgets that we implemented. And then we created an issue after this to update the core component so that it actually took this into account. So then we'll have to like retroactively go back and update this basically. But I agree. For someone who's like reviewing that didn't have a ton of representation when the actual merge request widgets were being created for UX, I use the core component as a base to review on. So anything that's not there, like I assume I should not be having implemented in the widget for my specific team. I assume like other UXers would be the same, but I'm not sure.
Sure, I think this, and thanks for that insight. It's something to take into account. This is one of those cases like we have the UX framework specifying the areas for the text, right? The subtext and the title and the subject or something. But there's not, I don't know if there's a strict typographic rule set that people have to follow. Like what happens with the weights? Can I put some bold text in there? Is that specified in the UX framework? And colors and all that?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in that, let's see here, in pajamas, And the actual text formatting is pretty open. Let's see, I'm trying to find it specifically. Yeah, so under the subject, I'll just let me paste it in our agenda here.
Thanks.
Under that section, there's just examples of some different formatting, and it just mentions that we can use the utility. Well, I think it mentions utility classes, but we obviously want to be consistent where red means danger, in all the contexts, and we use bold for emphasis of variables and whatnot, and we're using links correctly. So I think there's some reason to be pretty buttoned up with that, because we have specific use cases for those styles, but how those styles are used for each team, I think, is up to them, like how what they're emphasizing and whatnot.
Okay, no, this is useful.
Along those lines, I think, yeah, keeping it strict from the get-go is the best approach. But if and when extensions need to be added, or we need to actually allow for this as well, I think we'd want to be quite aggressive in refactoring existing usages and keeping the API clean and not let it bloat up as we add more and more use cases. I don't know how process-wise we can do that, but it's something to think about. If and when we find we need to extend this a bit, we need to be quite strict in terms of cleaning up after ourselves. But I don't know how to do that reliably just yet. Something to think about.
That touches on the point that we discussed previously on the process, if you want to extend the widget. And I think part of it is just including the product designers that worked on the UX framework, and including the code review folks, to kind of like make sure that we're not creating support for something that, I don't know, adds 52 pixels size text to the widgets, something out of our common sense. So Kai, do you want to voice your comments? Or are you just teasing?
Approval rules are the answer to solve that and be strict about it. If we used code owners in the GitLab project, then they would have to therefore be approved by people who could see and make that distinction. I'm obviously supportive of using approval rules in the GitLab project, but that's a larger and different conversation.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If we were working on GitLab UI project or something, we could probably be stricter and turn that on. Because right now, if you turn on the approval rules for code owners, you turn on all of them. I think you can't just like enable a certain section. But yeah, that would probably help. So this is good. I think I'll still have to move a discussion more towards how could we do this in the code, and have Peyton and Phil have a chat about it to see if we can. Because I think right now the cost of rewriting those summaries to fit whatever, if it's one of the things that we've thought, and I was talking to Thomas earlier this week, was we could use, instead of having a utility class, we could have actual components for subtext error or subject error or something like that people could reuse, and then underlying that would have like transform that to utility class, sort of like a filter abstraction sort of thing. But it would provide sort of a set of things that people could use out of the box to do what they need to do, rather than just allowing for like any markup to fall into place. And then the strictness of it is, should we strip any tags that come from those texts? Because then if you want to be super strict, you want to avoid them for adding an iframe to that, right? So this is probably, I'm going a bit extreme here, but right. So I'll move that to an issue, probably some that already exists. And if not, I'll just create a new one and ping some of you and some of them, and try to get something out of that discussion. But this is very useful to understand your perspective as well. And thanks, Mark, for pitching in there. Any more thoughts?
Just wondering, is the I'm trying to find the issue that I created for the subtext right now, but would we update the description there to include what we just talked about, basically, so that we would?
Not right now. So, and this was exactly why this came up. I was talking to Thomas about his work on that issue, and it was when I saw this that it was like a free for all kind of formatting that you can just do whatever markup you want. Because what I was sort of expecting was that his fix for this issue would be in the core component, and then I noticed no, he's fixing it on the consuming widgets, and that's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid that if you have like a wrong text size, we have to update all the widgets. We should have a core component where we update that, and then everybody who's using the core component should benefit from that fix. So that's what that came from. So my perspective is just let's fix it right now and not block that. And whatever we decide, because there's not just this particular instance, there's other places in the summary, even though they might be correct in terms of the UX framework, they're using directly the utility classes on the consuming widgets. So I'd rather us just, fix it as it is right now for this particular update level 1 subject text. I'm going to put the link here. Oh, you found it there already? Good. So we'll leave that fix as it is, but then whenever we review this, we'll review everything at once.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Thanks. Cool. Any more topics? Any more thoughts, questions? We do have a couple of work scheduled for 14.6 to continue to add support for the report widgets. And I know that there's some other people working on picking up other widgets. So things are moving along. So hopefully we'll get to see more widgets rewritten. And as soon as we have the core component support stable enough, we'll have a chat about turning on those widgets already for users while using the legacy ones for the other ones that haven't been rewritten. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But so far, things are progressing. If nobody has any other points, I'll just give you 15 minutes back. Right, I see a thumbs up. Good to see everyone. I won't be here next week, so I'll have someone else moderate the meeting. Somebody wants to volunteer, just hit me up on Slack and we'll set it up. But I'll see you when I see you. Have a great weekend.